Hello and welcome back to the Rekt Capital channel. Welcome to today's video. I'm super excited about this video because I've reached some really interesting conclusions about Bitcoin's price action when looking at its historical price tendencies. I hope you're having an amazing day today. Let's make it even more amazing and let's look at these historical price tendencies together. We're going to do that in two ways. We're going to be looking at the yearly chart, so the 12-month chart. This is going to give us an idea as to what sort of tendencies we see in the candlesticks. So it's going to be an analysis based on candlestick analysis. But the second way we're going to be looking at historical price tendencies in Bitcoin's price cyclicity are the market cycles. So we're going to be looking at its bull markets and when does it make all-time high within that bull market. So we'll be looking at the halving as well, because the halving is a fundamental bullish catalyst that tends to propel Bitcoin into a new bull market. So let's dive right in. Super excited to start this with you guys. This entire candlestick analysis on the yearly time frame started for me on December 25th, 2019, where I was looking already at the candlesticks on the yearly time frame. But of course, this was the normal chart, so this wasn't the log chart, so we couldn't really see anything here. So this is going to be the log chart. We can already see a few patterns. So let's have a look here first at the key resistances. So if we plot these resistances, we'll notice that this is the candle that was the exponential rally in the old bull market, this bull market to be precise. It was the exponential rally to end the bull market, and then we saw a bear market follow. So it was a rejection from around this $740 region. So this is the exponential rally to end the bull market. This is the rejection, the retrace following that bear market, or at least bull market. And then we have the bottoming out period in the form of a hammer. So the psychology here is that because price is going down, people are happy to scoop up Bitcoin at cheaper prices, which is why we end up with this hammer candlestick. So then this tends to be a reversal candlestick formation because a hammer tends to precede reversals. It figures very much similar to a doji candle, where we tend to see a bit of trend ending and then trend beginning. And then this candle reverses from that hammer candle. It closes on the 12-month above this candle body resistance, and this is when we see a new bull market, or at least a continuation in the bull market, that exponential rally to new all-time highs, and then we see the same thing happen again. So you can see that there is a lot of cyclicity. There's a repetition, a recurring theme in the candlesticks on the 12-month for Bitcoin. This is the candle that ends the bull market. This is the retrace from that candle body resistance right over here. And then we have that reversal, that bottoming out period at number 3. And number 4 is all about closing above this region right over here. So for the past 4 12-month periods, we've seen a very similar candlestick pattern forming here, because we saw this final bull market rally towards new all-time highs, followed by a bear market, that rejection from around this region, and then we have that bottoming out period at number 3, just like we had over here. So essentially speaking, this candle, this 12-month candle, number 4, is all about pressing past this resistance right over here of 14,300 roughly speaking, and it has to close above this resistance, very much like number 4 right over here, because the next candle that comes next year in 2021 will likely look like this. So that will be candlestick number 1 once again, and we'll see a new all-time high in 2021. And before we move forward here, the thing to notice every time we see a breach past this resistance, or even this resistance that we need to breach right now, we need to bear in mind that 20,000 is this wicking price action right over here. Very similar to what we saw here, right? But the thing to note, on the 12-month time frame for Bitcoin, the 20,000 level isn't as important as this level is. So it turns out that even though we might think that breaking past 20,000 is the level to see monumental hype and monstrous FOMO and euphoria enter the market and press price towards new all-time highs, 20,000 isn't that level as per the 12-month time frame. In fact, that level is 14,334. This is where we need to close on the 12-month time frame for Bitcoin to propel into a new bull market, or at least into the continuation of the new bull market, where we will see an all-time high later on. So one of the ways that this might happen is once we get a close in number 4, we'll probably see a pullback in the form of a wick on the 12-month time frame to test this previous resistance as a new support. So right over here, it's figuring as a resistance. Once we get that close above the resistance, we then see the pullback right over here in that wick to test that old resistance as a new support. And that's the key. That's the confirmation that we're seeing bullish continuation and then new all-time highs later on. So this is fantastic because it ties in with what we see in terms of the growth after the halving. So if we take a look at this tweet, what sort of growth in Bitcoin's price action we see prior to each of the halvings and then after them, we'll notice that prior to the halving is when we see much less gains compared to after the halving, and the same thing happens right over here. So it's only after the halving where we see most of Bitcoin's growth occur. So if history repeats, this is the sort of growth that we could potentially expect from Bitcoin. This is what has happened in the past. It doesn't mean that it will also happen in the future, but this is the sort of history, the historical tendencies that we see in Bitcoin's price, and it's wise to bear these in mind. So this is a chart from my Bitcoin Halving article. After halving 1, we see 3,000 gains, 3,000% gains, well, 3,400% gains towards the upside. But the thing to bear in mind is that the halving occurs in November 2012, but we see an all-time high only in the year after the halving, so in around 2013, around April. So that's something to bear in mind, because we see the same thing with Bitcoin halving number 2. We see after the halving, this is the halving right over here, after the halving we see a 4,000% increase towards the upside, and the halving occurs in mid-July 2016, but in fact we see an all-time high of 20,000 in 2017, so a year afterwards, or at least in the year following the halving. So in terms of these 12-month candles for Bitcoin, once we see a close in number 4, this is the year to do it. This is the year to do it because we've seen that right over here. We need to have a close above 14,300 on the 12-month time frame. Once we get that close, we'll probably see an all-time high in 2021. And that's what we're seeing confluence on. We're seeing confluence in terms of the market cycles and the Bitcoin halving and how it affects Bitcoin's price, but we're also seeing confluence on the yearly chart, on the 12-month chart. So here's another tendency that I found, and many people are saying that we are seeing a lower high on Bitcoin's price, so we might not see history repeat itself, we might not see Bitcoin go to all-time highs, we might not see all these different things. So these are the lower highs that we're seeing right over here. And that's right, we are seeing a lower high right over here. We have to bear in mind that this is the red diagonal resistance that's stopping price from reaching those all-time highs. So number 4 is going to be the year to breach this lower high and this horizontal 14,000 resistance, very much like we saw right over here. So number 4, so this year that's what it's all about, but at the same time we also have to bear in mind that we saw the same exact lower high in the previous cycle as well. Of course, this candle was very much away from this lower high, so I'd even say that this is a better technical setup for Bitcoin, and we're seeing this cyclicity right over here compared to over here. So it's all about number 4 closing above these two. We are seeing history repeat itself. At the moment, things are looking identical, which is fantastic to see. So let's talk about targets for Bitcoin's price at an all-time high in 2021, because we've established that we're not going to see an all-time high in 2020, but it's very much likely that we might see an all-time high in 2021, in line not only with the tendencies that we see after the halving, but also in line with the 12-month candlestick patterns here as well. So what I've done here is essentially I've measured the candle bodies of number one right over here, just to see that last exponential rally towards all-time highs. I've put this candle right over here, and then I've measured the candle body for this candle, which was also the same candle that took us to new all-time highs for Bitcoin, and I placed it here. And essentially speaking, the difference between these two candles I've projected onto the next candle, the next prospective candle that we might see in number one right over here. So that's essentially what I've done. I hope that makes sense. And if we just place this candle, bearing in mind this sort of declining tendency, then we might get a target of around $55,000 for Bitcoin in 2021. And I am trying to be as conservative as possible when using these candle bodies. So I'm using the fact that these are candle bodies and not wicks, because we do see a lot of wicks over here and here as well. So I am using a very conservative estimate of candle bodies and bearing in mind a potential declining tendency in the exponentiality that we see once we break past a key resistance and rally all the way to new all-time highs. So that's the more conservative candle body analysis, shall I say, for a prospective candle. But let's look at the wicks, and you can see that if we just quickly cycle from the candle bodies to the wicks, you can see that these candles are a little bit longer because of course they do take into account the entire scope of price action in that 12-month period for Bitcoin. So right over here, these wicks are going to be taken into account, but of course we still see this declining tendency, but this declining tendency is arguably a little less steep. So of course, even though there is a declining tendency, there is still a lot of growth here. The declining tendency isn't as drastic because we're taking into account all these FOMO buyers and all these panic sellers over here. So essentially speaking, we're taking into account outliers in price action, the extreme emotions, extreme euphoria, and extreme fear. And coupling all these outliers together, we are creating a prospective candle bearing all these wicks in mind. So if we place the shortest candle over there, that prospective candle, because after all, this is going to be one, this is going to be one, and this is going to be the one that takes Bitcoin to new all-time highs. So we are taking into account the wicks this time, and we can see that there is a price target of around $120,000 for Bitcoin in 2021. That's the predicted all-time high, the new all-time high, as per the 12-month time frame and the candlestick analysis that we've done here together today. So when we're looking at this candlestick analysis, we can come up with a more conservative figure than if we looked at the Bitcoin halvings. So in the Bitcoin halving article, I take into account the beginning of the bull market all the way towards the top of the bull market. Whereas here in this candlestick analysis, we look at the exponentiality of that final 12-month candle leading into the top of the bull market and the beginning of the bear market. So we aren't looking at the entirety of a bull market in this candlestick analysis as we do in my Bitcoin halving article and the Bitcoin halving charts, but still this is very much an interesting pattern that we're seeing here. And even though we're looking at the exponentiality of just one bullish candle, that final candle that takes us to new all-time highs, we still see very impressive numbers in terms of targets for Bitcoin. 55,000 roughly speaking for a very conservative approach, and around 120,000 for a more extreme approach, taking into account all these extreme emotions, but still just one portion of the bull market, that most exponential portion. Both forms of analysis are valid, looking at the candlesticks on the 12-month time frame and also looking at the halvings and how they impact entire market cycles. Both forms of analysis are valid. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What did you think about this video? Which analysis speaks to you more? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below, and of course, if you like this video, please drop a like, and of course subscribe for more videos like this in the future. I'm more than happy to be pumping out daily content like this as long as you find value in it. So drop a like, subscribe for more videos like this in the future. I'm Rekt Capital. Thanks so much for watching today, and I'll speak to you very soon. See you in the next one.